There's a few things that I learned throughout the years of decluttering that helped me stay a little bit more organized and focused only on those things that really matter to me. And there are dozens of methods out there related to decluttering that are really helpful. But today I wanted to share those few methods that were particularly helpful for me and that I would recommend to someone just getting started decluttering or with any aspect of minimalism. Because oftentimes, and especially in the early stages of starting decluttering and starting minimalism, the hardest part is just getting started. And when it's hard to get started, it's even harder to stay motivated. So today I'm gonna go over sort of a guide for decluttering and just a few things I like to remember when decluttering rather than thinking about specific items. But first, if you're new to my channel, thank you for stopping by. Here we talk about minimalism, frugal living, tech, and things of that nature. So if that sounds good to you and you end up liking the video, be sure to like and please Kimura lock the subscribe button. Let's get started. If it hasn't been used in a year, it goes. And I think this is a great place to start. There's this saying that if you could pack for 2 weeks, then you could pack for a year. Now, I don't know if that directly translates into what I'm gonna talk about today, but I felt like it was worth mentioning. A good place to start decluttering is by going through the items that you used in the past year and those you haven't used. And I think using a year is a perfect timeline because in that time, you've gone through every season, every holiday, and most things that you're gonna go through, at least on a routine basis. If I were to ask myself, could I survive only off the things that I've used in the past year? The answer would most definitely be yes. And I think asking yourself that question will at least clarify some things you may be able to live without. I think the only exception to this would be dealing with sentimental items, because this might be a little too early to deal with those. If it creates friction, it goes. One of my biggest pet peeves is having a lot of stuff in the way of something I'm trying to access or something that I need to access frequently. For example, before I ever decluttered any of my clothes, I always found myself moving a bunch of jackets or shirts to usually just reach for the same shirt every single day. And thankfully, I definitely don't have this problem anymore. I quite literally had a bunch of what I didn't want in the way of what I wanted, and it was up to me to keep it or not. And yes, this example is just for a t-shirt, but I think it can really be applied to almost anything. Creating friction is exactly what I do when I want to make it harder to access or harder to do something, like finding a shirt. Moving things around to get where we want can become such a part of our routine that we don't even realize we're doing it anymore. At least I didn't. And at its core, it's a visual representation of how clutter affects our daily lives and routines. So next time you're reaching for something in the closet or looking for something in the kitchen or bathroom, try and pay attention to see if you're moving a ton of stuff out of the way to get what you're looking for. Give things a home. Giving everything a designated place to be, or in other words, giving it a home, is not only a great way to stay organized, but a great way to identify things that either stick out or just don't belong. I know that speaking from my own experience, whenever I was on the fence about decluttering something, it would always usually move from location to location before I ultimately decided to just get rid of it. Never these though. This often created a lot of visual clutter, which in result led me to feeling overwhelmed and not even wanting to get started. One of my favorite things I've ever heard and talked about in a video was something I called automated decisions. And this is really similar to that, in the sense that when I'm done using something, it goes to its designated place or its home. One day isn't 2 day. Now, I'm pretty sure every minimalist who's ever made a video about decluttering has talked about getting rid of those just in case or I might need those one day items. While there's a few instances I can definitely agree with this, I've personally just challenged myself to stop thinking like this. Because right now, I only want those things that suit my life needs today. Something that my friend and I talk about whenever we talk about decluttering is that if we really miss something after we declutter it, for the most part, it could be bought again or obtained again. While thinking like that might not be the most financially wise way of thinking, it at the very least gave me a lot of peace of mind when deciding whether or not I wanted to declutter something. I remember a few years ago when I first took the TV out of my room and sold it, I was afraid that I would just miss having one in my room and I would be just bored really often. However, I ended up being much better off without it. I guess I'm just sharing that story to show that knowing I was able to go back to having a TV in my room made it a lot less scary to just try living without one. Speaking for myself, I can say that I definitely used to put too much emotion and too much sentimental attachment into just things. And since I've stopped doing that, I've been much better off. Something that I think is important to remember when first starting to declutter or really just starting any aspect of minimalism is to not overwhelm or overload yourself with information, so I will leave you with that. Whether you're new to minimalism or not, I think revisiting these early ideas can definitely prove to be beneficial. And it helps me reevaluate my life to see if a few things slip through the cracks that I may not really have needed. Anyways, that's going to do it for today. As always, I appreciate the time you spent here and I appreciate you watching. If you did like this video and you like this type of content, be sure to like and please Kimura lock the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.